So this Tuesday on the 27th of May, we have our new moon in Gemini, 6 degrees of Gemini, and it'll be around 4 a.m. here in Lisbon. And this is a really interesting new moon. So the new moon is going to imprint what's happening for this month ahead. And it's interesting because a lot of the big planetary energies are shifting this month. And when big planetary changes happen, those changes affect life here for us. So going from the macro to the micro. And so this is very much a transition period, which is different from the last few months of, kind of layering upon things that have been happening for the year. Well, suddenly we're going to be shifting gears. And that can be destabilizing because it's change, of course. But there's a couple of other things as well in this new moon. One is that there are some yogas in the sky, so permutations of planets in the sky that are somewhat unfavorable. So they create a little bit of challenge or a little bit of difficulty for us. And it's almost as if we have less free will, like fate has more of a handle on this one. So bear that in mind when you're listening to these videos about your own rising sign and what your experiences might be this month, because there's a sort of more fated quality, let's say, about this particular month ahead. And also the new moon, although it's at 6 degrees of Gemini, Uranus is still there. It's late Taurus, 27 Taurus. So I don't want to discount it completely. It's in a different sign, but it's also close. Just having that as well. And Uranus is, of course, the planet that brings us curveballs, unexpected changes. If you were here in Portugal, the blackout, that was a Uranian experience. So those are the type of things that we might expect. If you have planets at that 27 degrees of Taurus, that would be more applicable to you. So again, it's not for everybody, it's chart dependent. Now, the other thing that's interesting is that we don't really have any planets in water or helpful earth signs. And what I mean by that is that when water and earth are there, it gives us that feminine quality, that ability to kind of tap into our intuition, to be more free flowing, certainly for water. And when we don't have that helpful energy in the skies, it becomes much more heady and much more intellectual. So this is a month that's going to be much more logical and masculine from that perspective. And if you need that in your life, then that's great because you're going to get a lot of fire and a lot of air. But if you don't want too much of that, bear that in mind. You have to kind of tip the balance the other way and work more towards getting into your feminine, let's say. And again, this is going to be when we have a lot of fire and air, we have a lot of creativity, but it's more of this like urgency to put pen to paper and take action around something that we're passionate about, and less about sort of like walking through the forest and getting inspiration from the elves. So that's how I would compare these two experiences this month. This is a great month for taking your nervine remedies, hops and passion flower, poppy, all of those things that allow you to calm your nervous system down. I feel like a lot of people are going to need that this month. Now, the other thing is that most of the planets are direct except for Pluto. And Pluto is retrograde 6 months a year, pretty much. So it doesn't really count for me. So we have a lot of forward momentum as well. And that also adds that other layer to feeling quick and swift in some fashion. So a lot of things going on. Bear in mind that this is not chart specific. So always recap back to your own chart. These are general views. And also that this should be done by your rising sign. So if you don't know your rising sign, please go to the chart calculator, which I'll link in the description box. Plug in your birth information, and then also you can see where it says Ascendant or rising sign. You'll be able to take that sign and you come in and you read the videos for that particular sign, because this is how these particular predictions are written, and it's not going to make much sense to you if you just go by your sun sign. So I hope that's helpful. We're going to get into the weeds of it now. Let's begin. Wow, for Aries, this is such a powerful month because we're really stepping into a massive few years of change. And this is that first month where you're going to experience it. First of all, it's very intellectual and heady. There's a lot of ideas, a lot of kind of being on the go, jumping from one place to another, meeting different kinds of people, getting some inspiration, maybe to write, to get your ideas like pen to paper kind of thing. And so you've got that going on in the back of your mind. Now, at the same time, there's also a preview period between June to August where you will start to experience a type of dissolution of self, where you're restructuring yourself, but also by letting go of certain things or things that you believed were your identity. You need to, I don't want to use the word let go. It really is a sense of dissolving something, like putting a sugar cube in some water and just like kind of seeing it dissipate somehow. And that could be something with your relationship to the divine, absolutely. But it can also just be something that you thought you were doing something, especially where your career is, and now you're going to be doing something completely different, or you're stepping into yourself in a different way, and you're experiencing yourself through the divine. So this is an important component, and is especially important if you have planets at around that 0 to 1 degrees of Aries. So you might not get that preview feeling if you have your ascendant degree, say, in later Aries, but it's still an important month to note. Also, from a relationship perspective, because Mars and Venus are both in fire signs right now, it also creates a much more lusty feeling. You might be lusted after, you might be lusting after other people. The relationship element is quite strong. And it's kind of this, quick, hot and heavy romance kind of thing. So you do want to be careful if you're looking for something committed, because that can just give you into that lustful energy. And without so much earth in the sky, there's nothing really stopping you from jumping on that. But it's also quite an exciting time if you want to feel a little bit of magnetism, if you're feeling like you want to get a makeover or you want to do something good for yourself. There is also this element that's at play. For Taurus rising, the main focus of this month is looking after your own needs. And what I mean by that is you haven't been able to do that in the last few months, especially around this February-March period earlier in the year. Maybe feelings of isolation, maybe not being able to get to the dream that you're looking for. There's been a feeling of just kind of being stuck in the mud somehow. And after early June, so after around the 6th of June, that feeling is going to start to lift. And it's going to allow you to have that opportunity to pay attention to what your needs are. And of course, that's very important being a Taurus rising. But in general, it's like it's just been in such a long time since you've been able to address that now you're able to step into it. Okay. Now, one of the areas that you're going to be focused on is money, your income, like how you take care of your own needs. Do you spend too much? Do you need to spend more? All of these things are going to be coming much more into focus. And at the same time, there's massive career changes also in play, especially around this time of June to August, where you get a small preview into how you're making changes in your career. And it can be a time where you're letting go of a career that you've been having for a long time, making significant changes. So there's definitely some destabilizing energy coming to you from that perspective. And that's why the money piece is going to be so important, because you want to kind of get your ducks in a row. Like, what do I need in order to make sure that my needs are met during this month and during the period that's coming up? I would also say that if you have planets at that late degree of Taurus, so around 27 degrees of Taurus, like say your ascendant is there or you have other planets there, this is going to be more relevant for you. What I was saying about, things are still destabilized. There can still be chops and changes, but whatever happens during this period is going to be so significant for you because it allows you to break free of the things that weren't working for you. So all of these things that you've been just kind of doing one foot in front of the other, Taurus style, and it's been working for you, aren't working for you anymore. So this new moon is the start of that change. And although Taurus tends to want to stick to certain things, it's a good time to allow yourself to experience change and welcome it, because as soon as you embrace it and you start to embrace that Gemini quality this month, which is all about curiosity and just trying new things and just kind of allowing yourself to experiment a little bit, that's when you're going to get the benefits of the new moon this month. Wow, I just feel like for Gemini, this is like a brand new awakening, a brand new opportunity to reset yourself. And it's such a potent month because not only are there Sun and Moon in Gemini, Mercury's there, that's very strong for you, Jupiter's there, and it's also bookending this period from June 2024 until June 2025, where you've also been undergoing a new identity shift, especially where it comes to partnership or it comes to career. And Jupiter in Gemini is not easy. So I'm not saying it's been just completely bountiful opportunities, but it's definitely been sowing the seeds of change. And we're sort of bookending that and capping that off with this new moon this week, and then, you know, for the month ahead. So don't have an identity crisis, but use this as an opportunity in the year to give yourself a mini reset of things that you'd like to bring forth into this next month, and of course into this next cycle, this next year for you. Then we also have some nice movements for you from a career perspective, because between June to August, you also get maybe more of a breather. So you've been needing to focus on career. That's definitely where the planetary energies are for you this year. But it's been a little burdensome. Like maybe things just haven't been gaining momentum. And between June and August, you're going to experience a little bit more momentum. So you can take advantage of that. And also after 9th of June, you have, well, first of all, we have this big full moon. So that's definitely one to look out for in terms of relationships and contracts. But also you have an opportunity to start monetizing things. You're focusing on your income. You know, money through partners might occur as well. So these are all things that can shift around that middle of June period for you. And you might even just find yourself full of ideas because Mercury is strong, kind of like waking up in the middle of the night and just feeling like, wow, I really need to get that idea, like pen to paper, and feeling alive and full of desire to develop your skills. So these things are all wonderful. Again, take your nervine remedies. Don't overexcite yourself with coffee, but know that this is a really great month for a personal reset. For Cancer rising, this is a very interesting new moon because the energy changes halfway through the month. What I mean by that is the initial energy is much more about being away from society, taking time for yourself, indulging in your spiritual practices, getting into that more watery nature, let's say, even though we don't have any planets in water, so that might be a bit difficult. But really allowing yourself to take stock of what it is that you need in order to rest and rejuvenate. And towards the 9th of June, when Jupiter enters Cancer, that energy will start to shift and you'll want to come out of your shell. But I don't think that's really going to happen until the end of June, like that pop factor of like really stepping out. So use this month as this like spiritual housekeeping of like literal housekeeping to sweep out the things that you need to in order to enter into your Jupiterian year ahead. And I'll talk more about that in much greater detail in other videos. But it's safe to say that, yeah, the energy changes, but this is definitely still a transition month. And secondly, June to August is also going to be a period where you're reevaluating your career, and it will be a preview into the next 2 years. So again, the energies shift and you want to start looking at your career with a magnifying glass. Like, am I in the right career? Should I be changing something? This is all about like putting one foot in front of the other and taking things super slowly, because it's not something that happens from one moon cycle to another. This is a very deep-seated change that will affect, you know, the next few decades of what you choose to do for your career, let's say, or the work that you're doing outside of your home, or the, you know, the actions that you're involved with. So that's something to keep in the back of your mind. And, you know, money is still going to be a focal point, you know, and still like needing to take care of your own needs, putting a roof over your head, making sure that there's money in the bank. That's still a focal point until around middle of June. And it's, again, it's been a focus for some time now. So you're not completely out of the material world when I'm saying that you need to focus on your spiritual life. But this month definitely has that energy of just kind of taking some time for yourself and not overwhelming yourself, because starting from late June, things are going to take a much different turn. For Leo rising, this is all about your big hopes, your big dreams, your big visions. And until about the middle of June, you have the energy and the tenacity to fight for it. I'm not saying things will drop off a cliff, but I'm just saying that the energy is quite palpable and has been there since at least November of 2024. And you can even go back to June of 2024 when you began this journey of the visions, of the goals, of the dreams, and see how this month's new moon is sort of bookending that. So what are you taking from your last year of visioning? And what are you going to bring forward, and what are you leaving behind? So again, it's not the end of being able to act upon your visions. It's just that you're going to be able to see very clearly what you achieved in this last period, and also what's worked and what hasn't worked for you. Because afterwards, you're going to be moving into a much more reflective state. As the year progresses, So that's going to be a distinct change in energy for you. And you know, up until the middle of June, and actually even through the month of June, you will still feel this desire maybe to travel, to be on the move, to go far away, to kind of engage with a more philosophical part of your life. So that's also in the background. And it's a great time to reach out to mentors. So teachers, people that have been supportive for you. Maybe you want to mentor somebody as well. So it can be both ways. But sometimes there's a kind of tendency for Leo rising to feel like you are siloed in your castle, the king and queen of the castle. And so it's a great reminder this month that you can lean on your community and lean on your mentors for support for that next step of your life. For Virgo rising, you are having a reset for your career. And it doesn't need to be like a profound change that happens this month. It's more that this change has been ongoing since June of 2024, and we are bookending that change now with this final new moon in Gemini. And so you can look back and see what kind of changes has happened in my career. You know, and when I say career, I don't just mean your desk job. I just also say anything that actions that you're taking in the outer world that you're known for somehow is your career. So you can look back at those themes and see whether there has been changes and expect further changes for this month ahead as well. And after the 9th of June, we really start to think about your visions for yourself. So not just your career, but what are my longer term goals? You know, what is it that I want for myself? And that's sometimes hard for Virgo rising because, you know, you might tend to focus on the minutia. What I would say about this new moon is that because Mercury, which is your planet, is very strong, it allows you to overcome some of the obstacles and some of the chaos, you know, that I mentioned in the introduction to this video. So you have the ability to weather that. Don't get stuck in the weeds. Allow yourself to have expansive thinking. Now, this is important because the career element is present, and yet between June to August, you're going to be thinking about sometimes some more deeper subjects. This is going to be a preview for you between 2026 to 2028. So kind of like a peek or a preview, a trailer into what life is going to look like then. And you're going to be coming across some more difficult subjects, you know, having difficult conversations with people, having a type of existential moment, let's say. So nothing to panic about, but just know that you're entering into a period where it's important that you're going to be doing some self-work. And that this new moon is going to be the first sort of window into some of that. Now, this isn't going to be completely applicable for every single one of you because, for example, if you have planets at late degrees of Pisces, 28, 29 Pisces, 0, 1, 2, 3 Aries, you know, you might feel this preview more than say if you don't. So just something to watch out for, keep in the back of your mind that this new moon energy is, yes, on the one hand, it's definitely about career and your vision and your being out there in the world, but it's also about the way that you're entering into kind of your inner psychological state. And it will also be an important time to rethink how you're going about your daily habits, your health, you know, what it is that you need to work on, any chronic things that have been sort of niggling you. Now is a good time to also observe that for this month, as that's going to become something that you're going to be more focused on in the coming years. Now, again, this is not saying that the major health crisis is coming, because that's also something that, you know, neuroses can settle in. What I'm saying is, if you have any chronic things that you feel like, I just haven't really paid attention to that, go back and have a look to see, you know, what kind of changes can you make for yourself and your daily habits. Libra rising, this is a wonderful month for you to think about the subjects that interest you. And what I mean by that is if you have something that you're really dying to study or that you're dying to deepen your knowledge about, now's a great month to activate that. Of course, this isn't going to complete in 1 month, but the new moon is a great launch pad from which we can begin new things. And so you can say, like, I've been really wanting to enroll in this course. This is where I'm going to head in. I've been really wanting to read this book. This is what I'm going to be focusing on. And this also applies to taking any trips. Like maybe you've been wanting to plan quite a significant trip, but you need to figure out how you're going to make that financially viable, or you want to really understand what are the logistics around it, use this new moon energy to launch into some planning for that. There's always a good opportunity for you to reevaluate what it is that you believe in this month. Because afterwards, after the 9th of June, things start to shift. Career opportunities will start to blossom and to change, and you're not going to be able to focus on those things as much. Also, we have this June, July, and August period, which will be a preview into 2026 to 2028 relating to relationships. So what I mean by that is you're going to go through a period of culling relationships, and you get a window of opportunity to preview what this is going to look like in these coming months. So I think this has a lot to do with reevaluating your belief system, which is what this new moon is about, but also layering on the fact that these next couple of years is going to be a reevaluation of your relationships. And this is, of course, paramount for Libra rising because so much of your identity is linked to relationship. So learning how to restrain yourself and also cut ties is going to be an important lesson. So not an easy passage, but also an incredibly important transit. So big transits happening for you in these next few years, but starting to signal from this Gemini new moon. And you might have already received a little bit of hints of, the relationship focus when we had the Venus retrograde earlier this year. And Venus has been sort of in and out of your relationship house since February of 2025. So by early June, by next month, we're going to see that chapter close. So whatever was happening around that time, like how you dealt with relationships, what kind of relationship kind of things came up then, it's a good opportunity to use that as a sort of use case to what you might be needing to inspect in the next couple of years, and certainly between June to August. So yeah, a few things kind of on the burner for Libra rising, but definitely one that is very contemplative. Now, you want to be careful also if you get into new relationships around this period, because we are entering into a new phase where you have to be more prudent about the people that you let into your life. For Scorpio rising, this is kind of like a double Scorpio energy, meaning that the themes of this new moon are centered around shedding, of letting go, of transformative topics. It's a wonderful time to get back in touch with your therapist. It's a great time to get back into that occult toolbox and toolkit and see what kind of things are in there, whether you want to reconnect with your spirit animal, with your tarot cards, whatever it is that you feel connects you to these different energies. And so, yeah, you're going through this month of transformation. And all while career has actually been very busy. Like, it's been busy since November of 2024. So there has been something very palpable in the outside world that you have to focus on. But at the same time, this month is about some type of internal stock taking and figuring out what's working for you, what isn't. Okay, so this is one element. Because after the 9th of June, you're going to step into something where you want to study something new, where you want to learn a new practice, where you want to engage in some type of deeper field of study. And it's always easier to do that after you've done a little bit of internal housekeeping. So use this as let's say a stepping stone, this new moon, before you enter into this next phase where you're going to deepen your relationship to a new subject matter. The other thing is that whilst you're deepening your relationship to this new subject matter, you're also going to be in a phase of getting rid of bad habits. And it's going to be a major period of housekeeping for you in the health regard. So what habits you need to let go of need to be carefully inspected. And it's not always easier for Scorpio to do that, even though it is a sign that likes to do that kind of shedding and isn't afraid of a little bit of hard work and grit. You also have a tendency to hold on to things. So in this month, it's a good opportunity to reassess, what am I holding on to that is actually not so healthy? And this is a very basic thing of like, maybe I need to stop eating this, or maybe I need to be doing more of that. So, it doesn't have to be so esoteric. It can just be your daily life habits that are stopping you from being able to achieve the thing that you're trying to do, or get into a new frame of mind as you move into an important transition after June. For Sagittarius rising, this is a very big lunation for relationships, meaning that the themes of relationships are going to dominate this month ahead. And it's interesting also because there is a feeling of looking back to the last year, even back to June 2024, starting from there and seeing what kind of themes were happening for relationships for you, and then reassessing where have you come to now. So you might be getting rid of some relationships, and that might be happening even in the days leading up to it, the 25th, the 26th, in the lead up to the new moon. That's a good time to sort of sweep things away before you let new people in. So the way you want to observe this is if you're trying to get rid of something, do that before the new moon, right? Do that in the lead up to it, or in that actual day. Then when you want to let people in, you want to do that as the light is coming back in, when the moon is getting brighter. So even something as simple as, starting with a new PT. You don't want to start working with your personal trainer on the dark of the moon, because that relationship isn't going to go anywhere. You want to do that as you're entering into the full moon, in the days after the new moon. So that's just a way to kind of think about how you move into contracts and how you get out of contracts on a more practical level. And also from a relationship perspective, Mars and Venus are in like hot fire signs right now. So there's definitely a propensity to lust and to desire. However, what we're seeing between the June to August months is it's telling us that we need to restrain from too many flings, too many romances. So on the one hand, themes of relationship abound, and yet on the other hand, there's also the themes of, but you need to be more selective. And that's going to be something that's ongoing for you in the next couple of years, but that you're going to get a small preview, unfortunately, during the summer between June to August. The other thing that you want to be mindful of is your investments. So if you are making a play for any type of investment, whether that's property, whether that's crypto, whether that's trading bonds, whatever it is, you want to be more mindful of the way that you do that. So don't throw yourself into an investment willy-nilly because somebody told you it was a great idea and they sold you on this great philosophy. Do the homework for it. So I'm not saying that every investment that you make in these next few months and in this month will flop, but what I'm saying is that it requires a lot of due diligence. And the more due diligence that you do in that arena, the more fruitful it will be. Especially as we move after the 9th of June, when those type of themes, the money piece is going to become even more important. And so, with the money houses being lit up, we want to be a little bit more careful of that kind of spending. Now, until mid-June, you still might have the travel itch, which I know you generally do, but it might be even more pronounced until that period. Before we move on and you start to focus on career and you start to focus on a few other things that are having some major life shifts at this point. So keep that in mind as we transition in the month of June. Capricorn rising, you just are so busy this month. This new moon is going to bring about a lot of administrative hassle, let's say, things that you have to take care of day to day and that don't feel so rewarding or that you're not getting paid for. You're just doing it out of service to yourself, to the people around you, responsibility. You already have a feeling of needing to carry that burden for others in some respect, but this month is more about just being super busy with lots of little tasks. And it's also a great opportunity to reevaluate how you're managing your daily life. Like, for example, do you have any habits that you're trying to break? And I'm mentioning this because I'm reading Atomic Habits by James Clear right now, who happens also to have Mercury in Capricorn. So you might even associate well with the writing style that he has. But this is all about making those small changes to your daily behaviors, which he coins as habits. So one thing to consider is maybe looking into this book to allow you to facilitate the changes that you might make in this month. Very well written. I'm very inspired. The reason I'm saying this is because there's another layer to this month, which is that you're going to be starting to excavate stuff that's going on internally for you. And this is stuff that people don't see. So you're there kind of balancing a ball on a stick, on a plate, going down kind of the path of life in this busy month ahead. But there's also going to be a deeper excavation of, your emotional needs, how you're feeling for yourself. A parent might start to need you. You may find that you need to reevaluate where you're living. Like, do I need to just redecorate the living room, or do I need to fundamentally change the location of where I live, either by, by country or by neighborhood? So see, these deeper questions are going to start to come, and they'll be present between June to August, but they serve as a preview for the next couple of years after 2026. So again, a busy month ahead, a great time to sort of do some daily housekeeping in terms of how you manage your daily life. But at the same token, don't neglect the deeper work that needs to get done, and that's going to start to unveil itself as the next couple of years come along. For Aquarius rising, this is an incredibly creative month ahead. So if you have any inkling of inspiration, then you should focus your month on that subject matter. Because especially in the lead up to the new moon, you might get some wonderful ideas, and you need to have, of course, the white space to be able to allow that to happen. Now, there's not much earth in the sky, as I said before, so you don't get the chance to maybe feel as grounded. And if you don't have earth in your chart as it is, it might just be a lot of ideas and nothing coming to fruition. And you want to be more mindful of that as this month rolls along, as there's a possibility of creativity, because it can also go completely the other way, which is you just pursue pleasurable things and nothing really comes out of that. So there's like a lot of desire to have fun and, play and all of that jazz, which is fine. But if you're trying to get some traction on something and what you actually need is to tap into your creative potential, then that's where the focus should be. And the reason I'm saying that is because these next few months are also going to be about how you apply yourself mentally. Like, for example, what are your good mental habits that you have in place in order to keep focused and to be able to put in the effort for the beautiful ideas that you are giving birth to. Now, you've also had this ongoing situation with relationships since November of 2024, which may be a lot of arguments, maybe tension, just a focus in that area. So as much as you want to focus on your creativity, there's a couple of things which might distract you from that. One is that the relationship piece is front and center and might dominate the themes of this month. So managing your relationships comes into play, and that's also linked to your exploration of how you communicate with others, how you manage your relationships with your peers. Okay, so these themes are all going to be co-present, whilst I was saying that there's a lot of potential for creativity. The other thing is that if you have children, they may be also taking up your time this month because that area of life is also being activated. So yeah, a few things to juggle, of course, but quite an interesting month of transition ahead. And bearing in mind that, yeah, it's good to learn how to take some initiative in the realm of focus and what it is you need in order to apply yourself so that you can deliver on those big dreams. For Pisces rising, this one is all about coming back to yourself. And what I mean by that is, since the spring of 2023, Saturn has been sort of squeezing you into a new identity, and you've been working so hard on that with all of that pressure, it's almost like you forgot kind of how to let go and be free. So in this period, this new moon is allowing you to step into that again. And it's all about coming back to yourself from an emotive level. Again, we don't have much water in the skies, so we need to sort of rely on ourselves for that. And you get back in touch with yourself. You want to spend more time with your family. You want to stay at home a little bit. You want to invite your close friends over. So this is a time where you are allowed to connect with yourself emotionally a little bit more. And I think that's important to note because this month and the next 2 months after until August of 2025, this is a small window where you get that reprieve because you've been working very hard on changing many aspects of your life. And one of the things that you've been changing has also been about your health. Now, the health piece could have been ongoing from the spring of 2023 already, where you're reevaluating your physical experience here. So that has to do with, our physical bodies, our health, but also more specifically since November, because we had Mars also retrograding in the part of the chart associated with health. So now we are still focused in that area, definitely until mid-June, but specifically around the food that we're taking in. So you're thinking about what am I eating? What am I drinking? How does that relate to my emotions? What are the foods that nourish me emotionally? What are the foods that do the opposite. So yeah, you can start to think about the way that you're restricting certain things about foods and things that you're intaking, but it's also how it's directly related to this new moon theme of your emotional experience, and even how that relates to your relationship with your parents or your ancestors or whatever it might be. So the other thing is that you're going to start to think about your expenses and your spending, and this is a great month to pare back on that. So if you feel like you're spending money where you shouldn't be, this is a time where you want to be reevaluating that, because for the next 3 months, this is going to be a preview for 2026 to 2028. And you can reevaluate some of the things and the habits that you have. Of course, this depends on your birth chart. Maybe you're super good about that, but if you're not, then that's something that will become more of a focal point. So again, use this month as a transition for you to kind of step into your own and allow your full power to come through, especially if you have planets at around 24 degrees of Pisces. So if you have your Ascendant degree there as well, you're really going to be feeling what I'm talking about, and use that as it correlates to how you feel internally.